Zachariah, Zachary. Is it a CK?
Dude, so don't get me started on this. So it's
It's a CK. I know that.
yes, shortened version, but it's long ways. It's Zachary. But then for some reason, when I was in like kindergarten or first grade, maybe it was kindergarten the second time, my mom wanted it to be shortened to Zach, but use the Zack, not Zach.
Oh,
So then why would she not do Zackary as my birth name?
but that's weird. I don't think anyone does that. That's spelled odd.
No, but I want to be different. And then the other thing, my grandma, until the day she died, would write me cards Zac. 'Cause that's what she wanted.
For a while, I had never met. I'd met maybe a dozen people my whole life named Max. At a period of time in the gym, maybe last year, for 6 months, there was 3 Maxes. One Max, me. One Max, MAX, like Maximilian. And then one Max, MAKS.
Oh my God.
3 different Maxes in the gym, yeah.
MAKS.
Yeah.
That dude must have been rich.
It was Russian.
Oh, Russian?
Russian,
Okay,
yeah.
for
we
sure.
were maxed out.
Dude, and who had the highest maxes?
I mean, come on.
That was a dad joke, but yes,
yeah,
probably you. Yeah.
it was me.
I don't know. We'll see. What can you hit these days? Where are the numbers at?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
5 sets of coffee to mouth.
Yeah.
Anyway, today we're talking about a couple things, but I wanted to dive into the differences between online coaching and in-person coaching.
Oh, good question. Yeah. Good one.
They are different. The client experience is different. Differences in scale.
Yeah.
And differences in barrier to entry.
Yeah.
To be an online coach, you have to decide to just do it.
Well, I'll go back and reference something that I was told, or something I liked when I heard it. It was said by Chad was, there are online coaches and then there are coaches who are online. And this is like way back in the day, you know? And I always remember that being like such a critical distinction, because I think it's very easy to be like a person who just like, hey, I can make a bunch of money. I can be really good with social media and do all these things and have a brand, and I'll be a coach online and do this stuff. And obviously like they're lifters and they can coach, but it's like they're primarily focused on that versus somebody who's done it in person, either having a gym or like actually worked in a facility. That's a very different thing, because you learn a lot of soft skills in person. You learn how to communicate, how to coach, how to cue. Like you watch lifts thousands and thousands of times as a person. You can tell what's going on. I think you're going to be better at that in the beginning, right?
Yeah, I think in-person coaching allows you to become a better coach faster.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine if I learned how to coach online.
Right.
It's difficult now, but the problem is with social media, they sell this sexiness about it. You see the guy with 100,000 followers being like, you want to make $1 million tomorrow?
Yeah.
Be an online coach and I'll teach you how for $2,229.
Right. Our program is only $1,500. So
exactly. So $1,500 and you can learn how to do it all and I'll just do it for you. No, but ultimately I think, yes, like if someone's starting out, there's so much validity in in-person coaching.
Yeah.
And there are more entry-level opportunities.
for sure.
Part-time too, like coaching at a gym in the evenings. That's the thing with gyms too. They're weird, right? Like the peak hours are, 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So you could work a quote unquote normal job and then get into coaching a little bit in the evenings, in the mornings. And I would say the key there, if you want to do that, is just find a coach or gym owner in your area that, is successful and see if you can learn from them.
Yeah.
And make sure it's in a vehicle of fitness that you enjoy. But I don't know about you, but I mean, how many coaches, like let's say weightlifting coaches, have you seen come out of CrossFit?
Oh yeah.
Sure, there's many.
Tons of people. Yeah.
Even Jared started as a CrossFit
Jared
coach.
did, yeah. I think it's a much more common thing now to like, you can start your journey doing both right away. I think a lot of people will get in, they might coach people in person, and then like really quickly they're doing online stuff. Or I would say in powerlifting, it probably is a lot of people have maybe rarely coached in person. They do most of it online. They start there.
Yeah, what I see for sure in powerlifting, because it's not like there's powerlifting gyms on every corner. One day they'll all be SoCal powerlifting gyms on every corner.
Yeah.
Franchise opportunity. Give
Every
me $200,000 and you can have a SoCal powerlifting gym. No, but ultimately, like I think online, the barbell specific sports, a lot of it is online with powerlifting specifically. I think is huge. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to online coaching too, I think about like how I started coaching in-person people. And then I think once clients would like move away, I would just be like, I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
And it started like that for me. I don't know about you, but
No, same kind of thing. I actually remember I had a couple of friends, like friends of ours that were like needing coaching. So I just kind of took them on, and I was like sending them workouts and stuff, but it wasn't like a formalized, like, oh, this is something I do. And that was like just early, probably 2011 or something. And I was kind of just like, yeah, like I'll send you workouts, and then like you can send me stuff, text me how it's going, and that kind of thing. And that's how it starts,
Yeah.
But the distinction between the two is very much going to be about like organization. You could get away coaching in person with really
Chaos.
total chaos. No systems, no anything. You just like, they come in the gym and you just tell them the workout. And the funny thing is, it probably will last for a long time and not be a problem, because a lot of times people show up, and if you're there and you tell them what to do, that's enough.
Yeah.
They don't really care much about anything else. You don't need to show them anything. You don't need to, hey, here's what we're doing, this and that, right?
I'm sure there's been many moments where someone's walked in and you've just winged it. Be like, we're doing 8 sets of squats today, and then 3 sets of this, and they're like, yeah, brother, like let's do the thing.
That's all good.
And they love it, and that's progress. But yeah, I think with in-person stuff, I think I'll talk on that first. There's a few key qualities. Obviously, there's a higher dollar amount, someone can charge. You can handle less volume. It's like less scalable.
Yep.
Easier to get into and sell, because more novice clients will likely be more trusting of an in-person coach.
Yeah.
Whereas online, I find, is better for intermediate and advanced lifters that are like hold themselves accountable.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, I think it's probably easier to scale in the beginning, but then online becomes easier to scale later.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
100%. I think also like the expectation of what you're getting changes though, because like in person, people are going to expect like eyes on, visual, like you're dedicated in that time and you're wholly occupied there, which can be hard for some people. You can be trapped on your phone. You're like people that are just like, young, and they don't have a good sense of like, hey, I just need to be focused on this job right now. That definitely happens. I mean, many times I've been that way. I've been looking at my phone, when the whole group's training, I'll be like, oh man, I keep forgetting this.
Yeah. I mean, I think in-person coaching too leads to burnout.
Yeah.
I think that's the hard part about coaching. And maybe I say coaching, but maybe lawyers feel this way too.
Yeah.
Lawyers work 80 hours a week. Like maybe they just get paid so much that they don't care.
Yeah.
And they'll hate their lives for 3 decades and then keep it going.
Is burnout a byproduct of like getting compensated well enough to feel like it's worth it?
Yeah.
I think in the coaching space, it's hard because you could spend a ton of time working with somebody and building them up and doing all this. And then who knows what happens? They get hurt, they quit, they leave, they move. And like all of that feels like it was like you're building up to something and then you didn't get to actually like go to the victory with it.
Got edged.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
But so it's funny too, like with in-person coaching. So I used to coach, when I was a Juggernaut, you'd see me there with my barbarians.
Oh yeah.
And it was like every night, it was totally chaotic, but like maybe from like 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. I'd go to college in the morning, do my classes till 12. I'd drive to the gym, I'd train. Gym was like 45 minutes south.
Yeah.
I'd work like the front desk a little bit, and then I would train clients from 4 p.m. to 9. Everyone was on the floor. I'd be running around. They'd all have individualized programs, and then I would then go back to school and try to make it to the cafeteria before it closed at 10.
Wow.
And when I opened the gym, I remember being like, I know I can't do this forever.
Yeah.
And so what I did was, back like 20-year-old Zach was, I'm going to call him a little bit of a genius right here, is I built something that was convenient for me that actually led to my coaches having better careers, which is a hybrid model where the way we operate is every client gets a custom program. They get daily feedback on the training app, and then they get 1 to 2 one-on-one sessions a month. Because I felt like with powerlifting, like once you know the technique, you don't really need the hand-holding.
Not a ton of feedback, right?
And so that's allowed coaches in my gym at least to handle more people. So I guess one of the takeaways I think someone could take away from doing this is if you have a gym, like let's say you're already a gym owner, building it in a way that gives you time back in the day, whether that's a group model or a hybrid type of model, I think works for sports like powerlifting. Do you think that would work with weightlifting though?
Yeah, I think to some degree. I think that model is actually really smart. I remember you telling me about it when you started doing it, and I was thinking, oh, that's really brilliant, because then you provide, you keep people who are maybe moving, you keep access to people, and it gives you like almost 2 mechanisms where like you're not going to rely only on one or the other, but like you can see someone in person and talk about the programming and do all that stuff, and then go ahead and change it later, right? Or modify things.
If you remember to put it in your notes
if you actually
tab
take notes,
and,
right? Or the other side, like you have somebody who's online. It's like, let me just watch you in person. Let's do this, and you can give better corrections. You know, it's a good model. It works really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like in-person retention, we've talked about this in previous episodes, is easier because you have the connection.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think it's, if you do want to probably, there's only so much you could probably grow as a coach from a revenue standpoint, coaching in person.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've known people who are like Equinox trainers that can make 6 figures, but they're working like 10 hours a day.
Yeah, if you'd probably have to get outside of powerlifting to make that kind of money in person, because you're going to need to do small group. And so you're charging basically personal trainer rates, but with like 5 people at a time or 4 people at a time. And then you're going to have to be really good at sales to bring in a lot of people. That would be my guess, like if you're going to get to that number. But online, like, you can scale to that number really well, because you can get 50 people in a coaching, cohort, and be handling that no problem if it's your full-time job.
From a programming standpoint, I feel like once you get to a certain level as a coach, I guess let me go back a little bit. So when I first started coaching people online, I did feel it was harder to program for them.
Yeah.
Or maybe give them the feedback that like really like sat well, like that they understood. And I think as you go along as a coach, you get better at that.
Yeah.
But would you say that it's still easier for coaches to program when someone's in person versus online?
As you said that, I actually started to think about my experience now with the new platform, with the Coach Logic. Like I just realized, like, the reality of what you get in person is you see a lot of warm-ups, you see a lot of sets, and you get an idea of like what somebody's fitness level is like as they're doing it. But I say that, and I think about like when I was coaching with other platforms or with like email or spreadsheets, like it's really hard to know what's going on from just somebody sending you a single video and saying this felt like XYZ rating. With Coach Logic, like with athletes that put ratings in for all the sets, like I actually feel like I have a really good snapshot of what that workout looked like.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they started dropping off really quick. The RPE started climbing up really fast, whatever it is. And so like, I feel like I have way more granular, like a granular perspective on it, which actually makes a big difference. So I do think that in person, you're going to get a lot more detail, a lot more like nuance to their emotions, and you're talking to them in between sets. But with good software, like with good platform and good feedback, you should be able to get a pretty decent job of like really getting an idea of what that session's like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the right tools, you can get to the same result.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things I definitely want listeners to know is when it comes to in person, it'll be easier to sell because there's more trust. You'll probably get more beginner and intermediate lifters. When it comes to online, there's been many lifters we've brought on. Maybe we did really good at sales that like they just fell off right away because they're just not built for the online coaching. And it comes down to accountability.
For sure.
I think in barbell sports, we do get people, they found barbell sports because they maybe tried CrossFit or something like that. And they're like, I like lifting weights. So they're not like the person who's never been in the gym, but you still get those people who are really just starting out that do fall off more quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's also a big thing with in-person is that they're usually local. So like it's convenient. And a lot of times you might be like, they happen to be close to the gym. So it's like, they're just like, they're going to come by. That's part of their daily routine now, Whereas like, they might be finding a gym somewhere else if they're online. There might be other coaches in that gym. There might be other people, like, or it's 24-hour fitness and it's harder to deal with. So it's like, yeah, it's definitely like the in-person, having your own facility definitely lends itself to like higher client retention.
Yeah, it's funny too. I've like convenience factor is huge. I think one of the parts that played a huge role in our success was we're super centrally located in Orange County.
Yeah.
And we're near like 3 freeways where they intersect. And I didn't really plan that. Like it just so happened that like I realized that was good later. But yeah, when I've had clients move to like South County where their drive is now, let's say 30 minutes instead of 5 from work, they'll quit because it's just not convenient for them. And it doesn't, you think you've done all this work to build this, rapport and all this stuff, but all of a sudden there's a little inconvenience factor and they quit. And it's okay. Like, I guess I understand. I used to get butthurt about that.
Yeah, it happens, right? I've had that many times. Local people in the gym, they'll leave and go somewhere else, and they'll like, because it's like slightly closer or whatever. I know of people that drive past our gym to go to other gyms, like from San Francisco through Oakland to Richmond.
Oh my
and you're
gosh.
just like, that's an hour drive. And like, we're like right here across the bridge. But I mean, it's for whatever reason, they got a friend there or something,
Yeah, it's different. If they have a community, and like that's we talk about the concept called the third place. So it's like Starbucks' old concept that they're trying to bring back, which is like the place away from work and home. Like we're trying to create that community. That's been something we're huge on. And so yeah, the goal is that our community is so good that no matter how inconvenient it becomes for you to train, you stay for the people and the coaches, and that camaraderie. Because I think, again, when you're talking about in-person coaching, if you're listening to this and you want to build your in-person coaching roster, it's the intangibles that almost matter most.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's huge, right?
Yeah, and the community is a big thing, right? I know you do a lot of like community events and sort of gym event stuff. That's something that is like invaluable, and it seems so silly. It seems like, oh, you don't have to, but like it just makes a big difference. Like a lot of those people will. So the gym we're in now, we have a couch in the entryway. So like people will hang out on that couch. And I remember someone telling me like, oh, we should get rid of that and put more machines or put more equipment. And I was like, yeah, we could. But I'm like, I think people kind of like sitting on it and watching everybody in the gym when they're done. And it's funny because like people just gather and they just hang out there. And it's like kind of a neat vibe, right? It's like, oh, that's kind of a good, like, it's good to have something like that where you can have like you said, a third space where it's like, this is like, it's more than just going in and working out. They want to like be with their friends, watch everyone else's success. Yeah.
It's an escape. And the other thing I've thought about when comparing weightlifting to powerlifting, I think it's easier to build community in weightlifting gyms.
Oh, interesting.
Because typically, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but lifters on the floor are not wearing headphones.
I was just going to say, yeah.
There's a lot of times doing somewhat of a group templated team program. Whereas in powerlifting, when I started my gym, my value prop was customized, individualized coaching. And in powerlifting, it makes more sense, maybe. I don't know. But weightlifting, I feel like...
So we've gone back and forth on this. This is a good point. Like, I have gone back and forth in the gym where we had everyone on the exact same program. We had everyone on their own program. And eventually we settled on everybody being on the same program, even though it's a suboptimal thing, because what happens is people come in and they're not doing the same stuff. And so it's like, it feels way more disjointed. Whereas in powerlifting, it's kind of like, it's one thing if you're squatting and the other person's deadlifting or bench pressing. It just doesn't have the same effect. It's like, oh, like you're all kind of doing the same stuff anyways. Where weightlifting, it's like, it's kind of like you can't work in on the same bar as somebody if you're doing this or that. I don't know what it is, but yeah, culturally, it's like weightlifters generally are going to do the same stuff. They're not wearing headphones. They're all kind of like, if everyone's doing hard triples in the clean and jerk, like, yeah, everyone wants to suffer the same way. You
They
know?
want to watch each other, cheer each other on.
Yeah.
And do you feel like results-wise, have you seen similar amounts of results from...
Definitely people get better when they have an individualized program.
Okay.
Like, for sure, that's a cornerstone of just good training. But it's like, it's not that it's way worse. It's just like, you're gonna miss the boat on some people. If someone needs more work on the jerk and they're doing lots of cleans, like, yeah, they're not gonna get as good at the jerk, right? Like, same with powerlifting though. Like, if you have a program that's geared towards deadlifting and everybody in the gym needs to bench press more, like, you're just missing the mark on someone.
Yeah, and it's funny. We have a couple starting strength gyms in the area.
Yeah,
and I've gotten I've never lost a client to their gyms, but I've gotten clients from them who have really loved that our stuff is individualized because they do classes with everyone does 5x5s in the same lift.
I feel like a gym like that would just like after about 3 months, you'd be like, oh, I got it. I got the recipe.
You would think. I've met someone that's done the same program 5x5 for 2 years and it's, had trouble getting strong. But yeah, ultimately it's like, I do find with powerlifting, individualization is maybe sexier.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, people, it's so different too. Like everyone wants to listen to their music. One of the things we do well is, we have an iPad where people can change the songs. And so when they're going for something heavy, they'll put on their song. The hodgepodge of music that I hear throughout the day is insane. We'll go from like country to just like the craziest dubstep you've ever heard and then screamo. But ultimately it does create some sort of those layers of community. But I would say community is almost the most important thing for in-person retention at scale.
Well, it's the kind of thing where if you're not leaning on that, if you're not leveraging that, you're just missing out on a huge thing. Because like everyone's in the gym at the same time. if everyone's doing at least something similar, like everyone's doing squats that day or bench that day, right? Like you get people on the same page. They might be doing a different variation or different workouts, but like you kind of want people doing similar stuff. And then you can leverage like, hey, they're going for PRs. Like the whole team knows that's going on. That to me is like, yeah, it's a no brainer to not be, to be capitalizing on it.
And from, your experience too, I'm sure like you guys do, or you've done many one-on-one sessions and group training sessions. I mean, what would you advise coaches on doing when they're trying to coach more, grow in weightlifting or powerlifting? I mean, my opinion would be you want people to be able to train in a group. It has the best margins from a business standpoint if it's a group training model where someone's on the floor, or kind of what I do, which is a hybrid model.
Yeah.
Like, what have you seen?
I mean, we've only ever done the group model where, up until recently, I guess, to the new gym, the group model where it's like everyone trains or there's a coach from 6 to 8 p.m., right? So you're going to get coached if you come in then. You're welcome to come anytime you want and do your workouts. Having done that, a lot of people spread out and kind of move around to different times, and it's been pretty decent. But like as far as like, the group model, like it's kind of the bread and butter. Like you want people at the gym at the same time because it just brings the energy up. If you don't have that and you have just like everybody kind of just trickling in and out in weightlifting, it just different vibes for sure.
Absolutely. So I would say the sentiment, and I think you'd agree, it's like, it's probably if you're starting out as a coach, you're trying to build your roster, doing in-person stuff, I think lends yourself to a lot more education, but even like more social proof.
Yeah.
Like you can film some stuff, you can market a little bit more, you can do more to give yourself a platform to then maybe, I've seen a lot of coaches then pull back on in-person to then produce more online.
Yeah. I think if you're going to do a really good job and get really good as a coach, you have to be able to do both. I mean, you have to do some in-person coaching, for a relatively decent amount of time to get good at it, because you just need to learn to identify what is happening in an exercise. If you don't know that and you're just kind of always doing things through video, like you're not going to be in a good spot. You're going to miss stuff. And especially like you go to competitions or you take people to meet, like it's going to be hard. But I would say like for sure, like you said, like you could pretty quickly get into the online stuff and start working that way. And the hybrid thing like you do is brilliant for most people.
Yeah. Like again, my stuff, I'd like to say is a little bit of a unicorn, but if you have a space, it can totally be done. I think I've told people, and anyone listening to this, I've told, business coaching clients this, like rip my model. Like I don't care.
Right.
Do the same thing. You could do it for any sport. I would say the only flaw in my model that I have yet to figure out is it does make athletes feel as though they're training in a silo.
Yeah.
And a lot of times if you don't have that community or other coaches sort of in the community in some way with that client, their allegiance is with the coach, not the brand.
Right.
So it's super important to make sure everyone feels aligned with the brand. And that means you as owner need to be doing everything that you can to make them feel welcome just outside of their coaching relationship. Because if that coach were to leave, they may want to leave as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because I mean, if you have an organization with coaches, you definitely need to be cautious about like letting it turn into something where you're just hosting a coach with his clients, and then when he decides to leave, they just take them all with them.
Yeah, and ultimately you can come after all those contracts if you have them, but you don't want 50 bad Yelp reviews. So
yeah, that's true.
Either way. So with online, one of the key things that I think is important is one, obviously the client experience. Yeah. Like what do you think are the key things with online clients that are maybe different than in person that are important to know?
I mean, as far as programming goes, like I would say the most important things are you don't have immediate feedback, right? Even if you're delivering feedback quickly, it's probably not going to
FaceTime during their workout session?
You're not going to be doing FaceTime with everybody. So I would say like exercise selection is a huge part of this, like making sure you're picking the right things and that you're assessing that on a regular basis. In weightlifting, exercise selection is really important because a lot of it is technical. So you're picking movements that are augmenting the way the technique is executed, changing things so that the athlete actually benefits from it and learns new skills. Whereas in powerlifting, they do play a huge role, but it's like, people generally can sort out the technique in a bench press or a squat with more cueing and this kind of thing. So your selection of exercises is just narrower, and it's as important, but it's just narrower, so it's easier to get on the mark. That's the first thing, is just being really good about exercise selection. And then the second thing is being good about the actual program itself. Like you can see in person how much volume is affecting somebody because they can come in, they'll tell you how tired they are and this and that.
You see the bags under their eyes.
Yeah, you can just tell when they walk in. Like
you look yourself in the mirror, you're like, you're tired.
Yeah, right. They're dragging their feet, right? So being aware of exactly what you're dosing to somebody as far as training goes and modifying that to fit the person. Yeah. And because everything is after the fact, you want to try to deliver the best instruction you can before you have to give more feedback.
Yeah.
So if you show up and you're giving them a workout, an exercise and sets and reps, and that's it, like for an advanced person, that might be fine. As people get a little bit more beginner, you want to make sure you're like, maybe giving some instruction, writing a little bit out, giving explanation, or maybe it's video, whatever it is, like handhold as much as you can so that they feel like they are, they're not searching somewhere for it. The worst experiences is they're like, hey, I found this YouTube video, and it's like the one coach that your nemesis that like you don't want
ball squats is going to be the unlocking factor.
Right. Or your competitor's gym, like, oh, I found this great video on how to do a lat pull down from, Joe Blow down the street. And you're like, no, don't watch that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is, ultimately, with both online and in person, it's both like with in person you can do intra-session feedback.
Yes.
And modify on the fly.
Totally.
With online, it's, it is after the fact. I think the goal with online, if you're an online coach, would be before they do that movement again in their program, hopefully give them feedback that they can work on.
Yeah.
Or else they're going to feel like they wasted another training session.
Right. The whole week is gone.
Yeah. And then we go back to like either making weekly adjustments or having a platform that can help you make quicker adjustments, even if you long-term plan.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. When it comes to online too, I think it's more important to niche down.
Yeah.
With in-person, you can kind of get away with coaching different experience level lifters, even different types of people. So ultimately with online, I think it's important when you're marketing, speaking to a specific niche, a client avatar, and honing in like what I would recommend you doing, and you can do this for in-person and online, whoever's listening, is look at your best clients, maybe your top two in each, and then write down the traits that make them your best clients,
right?
And then try and market to those type of people.
Yeah, that's super smart, super smart. I would say, kind of be curious about your opinion on this. I think there's a benefit, like online coaching is not necessarily less than in person.
Yeah.
And there's a benefit you can do with online stuff that you wouldn't do in person. So you can do a video replay with someone in person and just show them on the, like, hey, here's what you did on the phone. Something I've done recently is like, because we have like a screenshot feature in Coach Logic, I've actually like sent like sequence photos to people in the list where it's like kind of neat to be like here's a snapshot at the knee, at the hip, at this, like 4 or 5 shots in a row, snapshot them all with like a line, and you can be like, look at the change here, look what's going on. And that's something you wouldn't do in person.
Yeah.
The same thing for like your video feedback. You can like loop a video and like kind of, play this section, and record that section and have it play kind of over and over and over again. And then you can write some stuff about it. So it's like they see that thing 100 times. You like watch this and see what your hips are doing here or your knee or whatever. So I think there's a benefit to those. You just have these kind of powerful video tools at hand when you do stuff online that's different than in person. Where in person, it's like right away you can do it and correct it. And they might get the correction and fix it, but they forget it. They don't think about it because they never have to sit there and like sort of embody what you're explaining to them. So it's different.
It's interesting too. You would think it'd be the opposite, but I do think online clients almost get a more personalized experience.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, again, if you have a sort of a group training format with with a training template, team training template in person, obviously that's not customized. Whereas an online one-on-one is probably on a customized plan. Whereas I think online clients probably think they aren't getting as personal of experience, but they really are. There's more tools.
Yeah. I mean, it's the one thing that's funny to me is like when you're coaching someone who you have online, you're coaching just that person in that moment.
Yeah.
When you're in a gym, like I could not see half your lifts because I just didn't happen to turn that way because there's 5 other people. Yeah. So you're watching whatever you can, but like you're going to miss other people's sets. And I find that funny because it's like in person, no one would fault you for not seeing a lift. Yeah. And online, it's like every video I put up, I would expect some comment, right?
Even if it's tricep extensions.
Yeah, right. And you do, and you deliver that because it's like, well, it's there, so I'm going to watch and give you some feedback. But it's funny that you actually probably do get even more detailed feedback online.
Yeah, the other thing too, I think it's really good to educate your lifters.
Yeah.
So like, again, maybe you have someone who's super beginner. You explain RPE scale and you're just like, look, I know you don't really understand it, but just try.
Right.
And then you teach them over time. They start to sort of self-coach a little bit, which then increases their ability to be coached.
Yeah.
And then eventually, as an ambassador, to your program, help other people that are new.
Yeah.
We've been trying to create that. We just created an ambassador program for experienced lifters in our gym.
Oh, nice.
It's like
How's
a buddy
that work?
program. It's good. So lifters who have been with us for X amount of time can go on a form, and then there's a spreadsheet where new clients then get a link. They can see faces, names, and like hobbies and experience level of other
cool.
lifters in the gym, so they know who to ask for a spot from,
Nice.
who's friendly, who's not going to be super closed off, because everyone could look kind of super intimidating if you first start. And so what we were trying to do is let's create more extensions than ourselves as staff.
Right.
And we have some amazing lifters that like love our community, that want to be a part of it, and it allows those newer lifters to get faster integrated. I think where a lot of coaches make a mistake, and we've done this, is new member integration.
Yeah.
You sign them up, you write the program, you deliver it, and then what?
Yeah.
And then they go and execute. And then if you're in person and like my gym, your powerlifting gym, you hope they make friends, but are you doing anything to facilitate that?
Right.
And we would do the community events and stuff, but ultimately it's, if someone doesn't know anyone, they're probably not going to want to go to the community event.
Yeah.
And the community events, I find they're very valuable, but it's the same 30 to 40 people that go. And part of that is because it's the 30 to 40 people that those things matter to them.
Right.
So I'll keep doing them. But yeah, ultimately you want those newer faces to be able to engage the community. And I think you have to facilitate that connection.
Yeah. That's a smart idea.
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, I think a lot of businesses, people talk about having raving fans.
Yeah.
And so ultimately in any business you want, like for me, for different services I use, I've referred so many friends to other friends' businesses that I've used and loved. And so they become a conduit for growing your coaching. You think about referrals. That's why I think that every coach should have a referral program.
Right.
Give someone a discount, talk about it, let them know that they get a discount if they refer a friend, thank them for it, give them a shirt. There's so many things you can do.
Right.
It's funny, like going into marketing, even like there's so many things you can do for free that would allow you to grow your coaching business. You don't need the paid advertising. You don't need to be spending a bunch of money on crazy video production. If you just ask your clients for referrals or reviews on Yelp, it goes a long way. It's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
But not to get too distracted on marketing. The other thing with online, though, I think it needs to be more polished.
Yeah, I
Right?
agree. I agree for sure. Like if you're going to deliver something, you want to make sure that the experience is like high quality. And a lot of that is like really going to come down to, like I was saying before, like the detail of the instruction, the ease of use of whatever you're doing, like that kind of thing where it's like the gestalt, like when you present something, like what is it? Are you giving them a nice, well explained program? Is there detail? Can you show the plan, the long-term vision, like what it all is? And even on top of that, like when you give feedback, like are you just saying like you jump forward or your hips are coming up too fast? Or are you saying like, your hips are coming up too fast and, I think this is the problem. Here are some solutions. When you warm up, I want you to try this. You kind of just outline it and give it another degree of depth.
Yeah.
Right.
Professionalism.
Yeah.
And it's funny. So like talking about even our metrics. So our online sales funnel metrics. So we have a 15% prospect to client conversion rate. That means for every 100, let's say 100 prospects come in, we're going to convert 15 of them.
That's high.
It's like, I don't think it's good. Do you think it's
Really?
good? It's bad because
I guess for service. Yeah.
in person, it's 40%.
Yeah. Okay.
So what that tells me is people who walk in and meet you and shake your hand are more likely to buy.
Yeah.
They trust it a little bit more. With online, our lead volume, okay, when you're starting out, people have to search really hard to find you, but then you start to establish brand dominance, and all of a sudden you're reaching people that maybe wouldn't have purchased your service in the first place.
Quality of lead goes down.
Lead quality goes down, especially if you're running paid advertising as well.
Right.
So that's something to take into consideration. So with online, though, what I would say to coaches is your sales process needs to be spick and span. Like you need to have a sales presentation. You need to, have not a script, but good questions to ask. Have some background on the client. So again, pre-call homework. Mm-hmm. If a client or a prospect fills out the pre-call homework, they're more likely to show up as well for the consultation. You're not wasting your time.
Right.
So there's lots of tools I think to use specifically for online coaching to grow someone's online coaching business that you don't necessarily need for in-person coaching.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I was thinking, when you said 15, I was thinking more like a B2C, like a SaaS, like a program. I'd be like, that's high.
Yeah, crazy. Like 1,000 people, then you get 150. That's good, but
that's really
for
good.
Service.
That's a good point, though, that like you do probably need to do a lot more. Like the handshake in person is so much easier to deal with because it's also like when someone meets you, it's they don't know who you are, right? And online, if they're meeting you online, they might even have a different perspective of you, right? I've had many times where I've done seminars with people, and they'll be like, "Wow, you're exactly the same as you are on video."
Oh, that's cool.
Which is funny because I'm like, "Oh, why would I be different?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, like we've met other people and they're very different in person."
True.
So in person, you just walk in and it's like, that's the person, right? You just grasp it right away, where they don't maybe have that same sense of like, "Oh, this guy is a certain way," you know?
Have you found too on the online side, like when it comes to, I know some coaches, they offer one-on-one, I know a lot of coaches that do like one-on-one calls included in the program. We do more open, 24-hour feedback.
Yeah.
What have you found? What have you seen? What works?
I think it's dependent on the person, right? If you're the kind of person who's really good at leaving a lot of detailed feedback, lean on that. Like I would lean on your strengths, right? Or just try to avoid your weaknesses, right? If you just aren't the kind of person who's able to like look at a lift and break it down and like tear it apart and be like, I'm really happy with all this and write it out, or maybe you just don't feel comfortable writing, you're not really great at writing, like then lean on the phone call more, right? Get on a call. I think I would be willing to bet money that the people that are doing phone calls, whether it's just phone calls or calls and a lot of feedback, are going to do better. Because the call is like, as soon as you get on the phone, everything changes, right? You can get a sense of their tone, how they feel. Like that phone call is like, it's gold because it gives you a chance to like connect with somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think I would say my last piece here is be first. The first, oftentimes when someone is shopping around for coaches or even gyms in person, all of it is they're looking at all different options.
Yeah.
And so if you're first to respond, it already shows your attentiveness.
Yeah.
One thing I'm really proud of is when I started the gym, I think what led to our success is my phone number was on the website.
Yeah.
And whether it was 6 a.m. or 10 p.m. and someone submitted a form, I'm going to try and call them. And I had a client stay with us for like 4 years who like would tell me like, yeah, you called me at 10 p.m. And it was like, we talked for like an hour. He signed up and he's around. You just never know what being first will lead to.
Yeah.
And the quicker you respond to that type of stuff, I think you're starting on the right foot by showing like their feedback's going to be fast. It's going to be good.
Yeah. You said that to me one time. You said, you got to be first because they probably emailed 5 other gyms, right? They reached out. They're looking for a product, and they've reached out to the 5 competitors that they think which one of these is right. So if you're the first one and you're going to, deliver a great presentation, like you're more likely to get that business.
Yeah, and I think I've had, sales calls with online where like I'm straight up. I mean, a lot of times if you're first, you'll usually win, and it feels right, they'll sign up. And then you might have some people who are more, they analyze their options. They like, oh, I'm going to go talk to this person, talk to that person. I had one guy who was like, I'm going to go talk to an in-person coach. And I just told him, I was like, your in-person coaching experience is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
They're 2 different types of products.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to get with online. And I, mentioned some of the highlights like the customization and sort of that more one-on-one. Whereas in person, it's might be going to feel more one-on-one, but it's not.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, I think it's being clear with the client on what they're going to be getting. And if they give you the objection of, I'm going to go talk to X amount of other coaches, all of us are doing relatively the same thing. We might have if you're using Coach Logic, you might have an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's like, it really is about connecting. And if someone tells me they're going to go look at other options, that tells me I didn't do a good enough job showing them that I can solve their problem. And I want to get to the root of the objection. And yeah, frankly, if someone's measuring online versus in person, I think they're usually going to go with in-person coaching because it's always going to feel like a tighter connection.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand, I think, with just like people are doing this for something maybe a little bit more than just the pure lifting, right? Where it's like, hey, I want to get into the gym and be a part of a community and a team, and that's important. A lot of people don't have access, though.
Yeah.
We found that in like the UK, there's a very, very limited number of weightlifting coaches.
Wow.
So it's like, because it's so limited, there's a lot of remote coaching that comes out of there because like they don't have other options. They can't, there's not enough. They're not going to go into London to train because it's an hour and a half drive or whatever, train ride. So like, there's areas that are just kind of deserts for coaching. So you have to kind of think that like that's all they have, right? So they're gonna pick you. The other downside to remote coaching though is that like you're one of an option that is everybody in the world.
Infinite.
Right? I was just at a thing the other night, and this kid had a coach that lived in India. And I was shocked. I was like, why is a kid in the Bay Area getting coached by someone in India? But he was, and it was like that just shows where the market is. It's just everywhere.
Yeah, I would say with online coaching, the bottleneck to success is usually how good you are at marketing.
Yeah.
And again, when I say marketing, you don't need to have a bunch of Instagram followers. It helps. But I think the key is finding the low-hanging fruit to utilize, whether it's referral programs, things like that, to gather more clientele. And then if you just deliver the most outstanding product or service, you create raving fans, and they'll share all about you.
Yeah, I mean that's like just the core fundamental, right? Just like do a great job of the thing you're doing, and then just dial in on that.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully, if you're listening to this, you picked up on some good golden nuggets here, and that's all we got for you.
Yeah.